Folks, with Tacitus today at your Pushback channel. Thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the issue of whether it be in social media or mainstream media, legacy media, whatever, the issue of talking heads that are presented to us, the viewing public, as experts, as being knowledgeable in a particular area. It could be knowledgeable in finance or the share market or real estate, what's happening in real estate. It could be what products we should buy and what the big social issues are of our time, what our moral standards should and shouldn't be. Are you against mass migration? You Hitler, fascist, Nazi, and so on. Now, there are numerous talking heads out there that purport to be experts. Now, where the area is more in, say, science or specific finance areas of finance, that sort of thing, that's a little bit different than say the moral stuff of do you have a best friend who's a black lesbian? You don't, you Nazi, that type of stuff. That's separate again. It's influencing, of course, but it's separate from your hard numbers and so on. Now, the amount of talking heads, certainly since the globalists have taken control, and in order to implement the globalist project, they have to have a very substantial and deep and all-encompassing influencing machine that they run 24/7 over us to keep us in check and shut us up and try and sell shit sandwiches to us and so on. So that's going on, and to do that, of course, they need the talking heads. Now, the general attitude is the person that they're going to use as the influencer, the talking head, are they going to relate to the demographics? So, for example, if they want to influence black people, they get say in the United States, they'll find a black person who talks in black street talk, for example, slang street talk, and that person will then be the influencer for the blacks, because the black people can relate to that. And again, it's to do with influencing, not leading or informing, but influencing. Now, I assumed that the people who were touted as experts were experts. So they were presenting, this is the expert on the share market. Is the share market going up or down, or is this or that stock a good stock to buy, or the real estate market's booming, you should buy now because, and so on. So anyway, some years ago, I got to sit next to this dinner. I got to sit next to a guy who was touted as the share market expert. He knew everything about the share market, when prices go up or down, what was happening. With this company's going to announce its earnings, and you buy the stock now, and all this type of thing. And he used to get into some details on it. And he had a 10-minute segment in his finance show every day. So I just assumed he was an expert. He seemed to speak with authority, wearing a very sharp suit. So anyway, I got to sit next to this guy, and it became apparent within 60 seconds that not only was he a low IQ moron, but he didn't know anything about the share market or the stock market. He didn't know anything about any company he was talking about or had talked about. He was a fucking idiot. And that took me by surprise. I said, whoa, and I was almost speechless with surprise. But the guy was, the script that he read, he just read off a teleprompter. The script was written out for him by other people. He had to rehearse it several times to get it right, so he sounded and looked like he was a man of knowledge and authority. But that was it. So they just put this guy, they focus grouped him through, fuck knows how many focus groups, and he'd come out as the most desirable guy each time. The people in the focus groups say, oh, him, he's the one. So they think, okay, he's going to, he's the most likable guy according to the focus groups, and he can best relate to the people we want to talk to. And they don't want to talk to the hard-nosed experts. They don't listen to this guy. They want to talk to the people who know nothing themselves, and they need guidance, and they need to look at something and go, well, that guy's confident. He knows what he's talking about. But in fact, the guy didn't. He didn't know shit, and he was a moron to boot. So, and I remember being quite taken aback by this, and So, but I had a recent interaction with somebody who's touted as an expert in the field of science, and she's got a regular spot on social media and got a huge following, by the way. And she's touted as this huge expert, knowledgeable, and is an expert researcher and an IQ of 10 million, and all this sort of stuff. But it became very apparent just in dealing and interacting with her that she actually doesn't know shit. She couldn't research the time of day, let alone deep and mysterious science or anything like that. But she's the one they put out front as the girl chick boss who's the expert. Girls can do science, and you go girl, and this sort of thing. So they put her out front, but that she's a moron that knows nothing, and very unsophisticated, very basic, but she's the one they put out. Now I can go on here. The guy who there's a guy who they've ginned him up as the real estate expert. So he knows when the market's going to boom. You have to buy now. You have to buy right now. You won't get another chance. Oh, this is it. And the fact that the real estate market is overvalued to the highest overvaluation in the history of Australian real estate. Who cares? And he's going out there exhorting people to buy. Now he's owned lock, stock, and barrel by the big money end of town. But again, the situation when he was in quite a short interview and a softball interview, and it was fairly plain that he was an idiot who knew nothing, and that comes across real quick. But when you look at him reading from the scripted teleprompter, and again, dressed in his sharp suit and the whole thing, like, so they've just created, he's like a mannequin or a doll that you might see in a shop window, except this one talks. Now AI will probably replace these people, one imagines, in the future, and maybe the near future at that. But these people are put out as experts in their field. Again, whatever it is, it could be food nutrition, it could be anything. But they're or which vitamins you should take. But they're there to push a certain narrative. That's all. And they're put forward as, and dressed up as, and presented as experts, but they're not. They absolutely know nothing. Quite some years ago now, I was out for dinner with some people, and there was a news anchor there, and she was quite a popular one at the time. And the impression you got was she knew what she was talking about, the way she presented the news, and they coached her, and in front of the video machine, they coached her endlessly on how to appear confident and knowledgeable and in control, and they'd give her the questions to ask, which gave the impression that she was right across the issues and so on. But she readily admitted, I don't know shit. She said, I don't know one story to the next. I don't even know what story's coming up next. I've got a little earpiece, and they tell me, okay, this story's about little babies dying in Africa, so I have to look sad. The next story is something else, I have to look happy. And they tell her the demeanor, you now have to smile this one, look sad on this one, pull a face on this one, and they'd feed her the question. So as she's supposed to be interviewing someone on the scene of some event in the city, and then they give her the questions to ask. The rest of it she reads off the teleprompter. So, I don't think this chick actually was an idiot. I mean, she wasn't a genius, but she wasn't an idiot. But if somebody wants to pay her big bucks, and they were, back in the day, she was probably getting something in the order of 7 to 8 times the average wage. So she's being paid big bucks, in today's money, like $500,000 plus, which actually in Sydney isn't big bucks anymore. It's a decent enough amount of money though. And she, that was her job, and she was, look, I don't know what I'm doing. They just tell me what to do and what to say and how to look and the face to pull and the questions to ask, and I read off the teleprompter, and that's it. They pay me big bucks for it, because in the focus groups I come across well to the viewing public, and so on. So she says, I don't know shit, and don't care that I don't know shit. And again, if they want to pay me a lot of money for reading off the teleprompter, then hey, who cares? And you can kind of see a point, but I was again rather surprised that she didn't know anything and didn't care that she didn't know anything. So just coming to look on social media now, the amount of controlled narrative pushing influences that are on social media, and there are a lot. There's not many independent ones. There are some, but not many. And how scripted they are and so on. But when you actually peel back the veneer on the outside, most of them are low IQ morons, and they're just pushing a narrative they're told to. I mean, look at some of the politicians. I mean, look at AOC. Look at Ayanna Pressley. Look at Rashida Tlaib, and look at all those people. Or if you go into the UK Parliament, people like David Lammy and Diane Abbott, or the Australian Parliament. There are people who've barely got an IQ of 90, and yet they're being elevated to the most senior positions, and they're being told what narratives to push and what squawking noises to make. So it's all across the board that we're being lectured, morally lectured, given technical advice by people who don't know shit. You've been with Tacitus today, your Pushback Channel, and thank you for listening.